Check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, Panthers Nation? What up, dude? It's Aaron Duncan here with the Necessary Bluntness Sports Talk, bringing you the recap of last night's game against the Patriots, the preseason game, game 2, week 2, whatever you want to call it. And I didn't do a live stream after the game like I will normally do during the regular season, but I wanted to give you guys some feedback off this game, and this is not going to be as polished as some of my other videos. It's going to be similar to a stream. I'm just going to be going off the cuff, giving some of my thoughts and notes that I took down during the game. So before we get into that, make sure you guys hit the subscribe button down below if you are not subscribed. I do recap and analysis of the Panthers pretty much every day that ends in Y. So if you don't want to miss anything, hit the button down below and the bell icon when you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a thing and you get notification when I drop videos. But the story for tonight wasn't so much of who played, but it was who wasn't playing. The laundry list of players that were inactive were huge. We almost had a 53-man roster on the field today because there was 31 players out of what, the 96, 95 that we have on the roster or whatever, 85 on the roster. So we really only had 53, 54 players that were dressed out. There were rumors that guys like J.C. Horn may get some playing time as one of the only starters that played, but that didn't end up being the case. They got him dressed up, they kind of pulled him back. But still had guys in there. Obviously, P.J. Walker got the start. We talked about that. Him and Matt Corral alternated quarters. Most of the offensive line did not play except Ickey, Ekwonu, and Brady Christiansen on the left side, who we project could possibly be the starting left side of the offensive line. So they got some work together. But the rest of the line was backups. Obviously, receiver-wise, we had some backups, but we did have Higgins and Shi Smith, two guys that have been in a rotation and have got heavy playing time. So there was some semblance of guys with experience out there, but also a ton of inexperienced rookies, first and second year players out there. So it was a mixed bag, especially going against the Patriots starters. But I was very impressed about how they started the game. The defense forced the Patriots to 2 3-and-outs in those first 2 drives. Now, if you follow me on Twitter, I've been throwing shade and slander at Mac Jones for a while now. Not just because he tried to break Brian Burns' leg last year, but I thought he was a little bit overrated last year. And the fact that Josh McDaniels being gone and they didn't really upgrade the weapons or anything around him, I thought that they would struggle. Nevertheless, the Panthers' 2s and 3s on defense really came out and, like I said, held it a 2 3-and-outs. They did give up that big play in that third drive. That was Keith Taylor. Keith Taylor's a guy that we thought could possibly be heavy in rotation and even could compete for CB3 spot with C.J. Henderson. But with Keith Taylor being hurt in camp, this being his first game back, he got that work. They targeted him a lot. I don't know the exact stats about what he was targeted, but he gave up that long ball that led to a touchdown drive. He gave up a couple other comeback routes and underneath routes. So Keith Taylor kind of struggled in his first game back. Obviously, with the soft tissue, you're not going to be all the way there. The conditioning may not be all the way there either, but I was happy to at least see him back out there, to say the least, on that. But the defense held pretty tall, and then once they gave up that touchdown drive, obviously the Patriots pulled their starters because they felt satisfied with that drive. But keep going on the defense. Obviously, the interesting thing that I noticed is Davion Nixon did not start in the interior line, but they started Phil Hoskins at the 3 technique. Davion Nixon is still coming back slow, obviously, from that offseason surgery where he hurt on his knee. So that kind of makes sense. But another thing that I paid attention to was Brandon Smith, our rookie draft pick, started interior at the middle linebacker position. Now, Brandon Smith, he could play some inside, he could play some outside. This would be a good chance to get him there. He's a huge guy, 6'3", 250, probably one of the most athletic linebackers in that room for us, but we haven't really got a look at him, a good look. Even though he flashed. I'm going to talk about the rookies more in another video, probably tomorrow at a later date, but what I saw from Brandon Smith was pretty impressive. He made some plays. He seems to be flashing at certain times. He does certain things pretty well. They brought him off the edge on a couple blitzes. They left him in the middle. Leaves some stuff to be desired when it comes to playing inside linebacker, as far as being physical, taking on blocks, being strong in his gap, and just awareness and coverage in general when it comes to play recognition. But this is stuff that you think that with more repetition and experience, especially when it comes to the coverage game, that he'll be able to get better as long as he's hanging around vets that he's behind, like Shaq and Corey Littleton and Damian Wilson, stuff like that. But I was very impressed with Brandon Smith, obviously from a rookie standpoint on defense. And the other thing that I noted on defense was Kenny Robinson actually got some playing time. Now, Kenny Robinson, we know, got kicked out of practice for fighting on consecutive days. Rule said he had to look at the film. A lot of people suspected that he may get cut because we saw what happened last year with JT eBay hit a guy too high and got kicked out of practice and whatever. And with it being to cause a lot of fights and him sending a guy to concussion protocol, a lot of people thought that the same thing may happen for Kenny Robinson. It did not happen. He played tonight. He had some tackles. He was pretty active. He didn't really make a ton of plays, but the Patriots were definitely gunning for him. We saw after the whistle play by a lineman come and hit Kenny Robinson after the play, and then a couple other times when he was blitzing, I saw him coming out the edge and some linemen really seeking him out, trying to knock him off his feet. And, I mean, it's the Patriots, man. What you expect? These dudes, they're not guys that like to play always in between the whistles, especially in a night like tonight when the 2s and the 3s were really putting it to them on defense. It happens. You know what I'm saying? It happens. But I actually was pretty satisfied with the defensive production for the most part during that game. You know, honestly, the pressure wasn't all the way there the whole game, but early on, Julian Stanford getting that sack. Phil Snow brought a lot more exotic blitzes, double A-gap pressures with the middle linebackers walked up with Brandon Smith. And Mosby walked up to the interior in the A-gap and then backing out doing different zone blitzes and really confused the Patriots to a certain extent. So I was really surprised that Phil Snow was willing to show that much in the preseason. Now, I'm sure between him and Steve Wilkes, they have all kind of exotic blitzes. These are one of the most heaviest blitzing defensive coordinators and defensive coaches, in the league. So I'm sure they got all kind of stuff in their bag, but I was very surprised to see them show that much this early on, especially in a preseason game. But I was happy overall. The secondary, shout out to Tay Hayes, Appalachian State's very own with the pick six. I can't remember. Maybe you guys let me know down below in the comments. When's the last time this team has had a pick six? Somebody said Luke Kuechly in the Thanksgiving game. If we want to talk about any game in general, what comes to mind is Luke Kuechly's pick six, 2015 versus the Seahawks in the playoffs. But the excitement and the joy that I got from that pick six, I'm like, when's the last time we actually had something like this happen? That wasn't a fumble. Obviously, Jeremy Chin had a fumble recovery for a touchdown against the Vikings his rookie year, but I'm trying to remember the last time we had a pick six, and nothing really comes to mind besides that 2015 playoff game versus the Seahawks. But if you know something, let me know down below in the comments. But he made a play down deep, too. He was beat a little bit, but he ended up recovering. Didn't get called for the PI, but ended up making it hard for the defender, and he's made plays. Matt Rue even shouted him out in the press conference saying that this guy continues to make a play a day, a play a day, a play a day. And obviously, it was at the expense of Chris Westry last week, but we could see possibly somebody else getting cut because guys that have just come in like Tay Hayes have been making plays. So I'll be interested to see, how this cornerback room shakes out and how these guys end up shaping up this 53-man roster overall. But let's go over to the offensive side of the football because this is pretty disappointing. P.J. Walker, multiple interceptions, a fumble that ended up resulting in a touchdown in that last play. Him and Matt Corral, neither one of them looked good at all. P.J. made some throws from every now and then, but there was way more head scratchers with the interceptions than there were for quality passes from P.J. And with all the hype I was giving him, talking about my theory of him pushing for quarterback 2 and them trading Sam, it's out the window now. It's out the window now, making me look stupid. P.J. let me down. He let me down. I was gassing him up. He let me down tonight, and he even said it himself in the post-game press conference that when you're in the type of position that he's in, where you're on the outside looking in, most likely you can't afford to have bad days and bad games like he did today. And I shout out to him for being self-aware, but it was tough to watch tonight. The offensive line, they struggled for the most part. Wasn't a ton of room in the running game. Obviously, Ickey Ekwonu, he has some good things and some bad things. I'm going to talk about it when I make this rookie video, like I said, tomorrow. But we saw him have a pancake. But we also saw him get put on his back by a strong safety. You take the good with the bad, I guess, when it comes to the running game. But the running game and the physicality is supposed to be his strength. I think the lack of experience probably played a factor because you're not used to some of these safeties being that hard-nosed in the NFL. And when they bring it like that, it seems like you get caught off guard. I mean, to be 330 pounds like Ickey is and get blown back like that, that's eye-opening. But that's just the running game. In the passing game, he struggled mightily. There was some good reps. They picked him picking up stunts, him in combo with Brady Christiansen. But for the most part, he was getting whipped. And he was getting whipped. And even a sequence of back-to-back plays where he was getting beat by certain moves, whether it was the dip on the speed rush or just getting confused in the twist of the stunt. Granted, like I said, these are the Patriots starters, but these are reps that he needed to get. Why didn't he get these a little bit earlier? That's a question that can be asked to Matt Rule, but it seems like Matt Rule was correct in his thinking that Ickey just isn't there yet and he's not ready. He needs some experience. Some people may say that he needs to play to be able to get there, but Matt Rule may seem like, okay, hey, is he going to be ready for week 1 when you're going against one of the best, if not a top 5 defensive end in Myles Garrett? That could be ugly when you're giving up sacks to guys from the Patriots that we don't even know who their names are versus one of the former first-round overall pick in Myles Garrett. We'll see what happens. But him and Brady Christiansen seem to struggle, and you could tell they haven't had much experience together, unfortunately, but it's a good thing that they were getting some and growing pains. Now, I'm not going to write the book on Ickey and say that we should have drafted somebody else. It's been one game. Let's hold our horses. I did say there was pressure on Ickey and that these questions would come. If you remember the video that I said that there was pressure, who had the most pressure on this team, I named Ickey because that the Panthers had a pick of a litter, pick any offensive tackle, and they chose Ickey. It seems like Cross, he had his struggles too for the Seahawks game from what I saw. And then I can't even remember Evan Neal, the Giants tackle. I haven't paid much attention to him, but I did see Cross. He has some flashes, but he also struggled as well. So it comes with the territory. So I'm not going to question why we drafted Ickey Ekwonu right away. I'm just going to question maybe some of the process of getting him ready and where they may put him at this year. Obviously, the whole left tackle with him and Brady Christiansen debate is still up there, so it is what it is. Another thing, though, that I noticed is Shi Smith. Shi Smith, I mean, the legal matters aside, we don't know what his future is on that standpoint. This dude is making plays. And with Terrace Marshall Jr. struggling and Matt Rule pretty much calling him out and putting him on notice, Terrace Marshall Jr. is in trouble. Terrace Marshall was supposed to play because of that hamstring injury. He sat out, and Matt Rule was very frustrated. Matt Rule said that he was having a good camp, saying that Terrace Marshall, they need him to practice. They need him to play. He was having a good camp, so when he's healthy, he's good, but they need him to step up. They said Higgins stepped up. Shi Smith has stepped up. Obviously, we know DJ Moore and Robbie's there at the number 1 and 2, but Terrace is kind of getting left behind. And somebody we thought could compete for wide receiver 3 reps is looking like wide receiver 4 or 5 based on how Shi Smith and Higgins has played. And Shi Smith is even making some other receivers expendable, i.e. Andre Roberts. Now, I don't think they'll cut Andre Roberts, but his contract is not that high. He doesn't really offer much on offense. He is a pretty solid returner over the years in his career, but Shi Smith is younger. He's more dynamic. He's getting offensive reps, and with the crowded wide receiver room with guys that we don't know who could be on the outside looking in, they maybe only keep it 6 or 7 receivers. Shi Smith being able to return punts, it makes things interesting when it comes to that. I'm not saying that Roberts is going to get cut, but it's a possibility because, I mean, Shi Smith is just saving roster spots. We could use those somewhere else, especially if they're talking about keeping 3 quarterbacks. It makes other decisions tougher in different places. Nevertheless, Shi Smith is definitely trending up. I'm liking what I'm seeing from Shi big time. You know what I'm saying? So I appreciate him doing that. Higgins, he played again too. He also had a couple catches. But Matt Corral, he struggled. I told you guys he wasn't there yet. Constant pressure by the offensive line and by the defense. He ended up getting hurt. And that could set back his development. We don't know what it is. It hurt his foot, ankle, something like that. We know he had the same type of injury. I don't know if it's the same leg, but he had the same type of injury in that bowl game, which kind of hurt his draft stock. So we'll see. You know what I'm saying? I doubt it's broken, but he was in a big walking boot after the game. We saw last year with Thomas Fletcher, they having to put him on IR. He ended up saving a roster spot. They ended up keeping JJ and Thomas Fletcher. And Fletcher got cut this year. Is that the same thing that happens with Corral? People are floating that around. Some people are also saying that the wrong Matt got the boot. If you get that, that's pretty hilarious. I'm not going to lie. I didn't come up with it. Wish I had him. It's pretty funny. Nevertheless, Matt Corral struggled. He had some spot. He looked better, obviously, than last week. Completing more than one pass is going to make you look better. But under constant pressure, it wasn't making decisions as quick as possible. Some inaccuracies. Almost threw a pick, but thanks to Derek Wright, it was broken up. But the game just seems fast for Corral. I told you guys it doesn't matter who he gets reps against. He just needs reps because he's just not there yet. And I hope you guys are starting to see that. It's going to take some time for Corral. So hold your horses on the quarterback 1 and the quarterback 2 talk with Matt Corral. And people are mad that he's not getting the time and the development. But I don't think 1 or 2 preseason games is going to get Corral where he needed to be honest. And especially with this injury setting him back, it'll be interesting. Matt Rule and everybody else on his staff is trying to win. People are like, oh, Matt Rule is sacrificing the future. we don't know if Corral's going to be the future. And if Matt Rule is not here anyway, Corral's probably not going to be around either, because the new coach will want his own quarterback if we're that bad to the point that Rule is gone. So, I mean, it could seem like a wasted pick. I can understand you're saying with that. But at the same time, trying to force a square peg in a round hole and make Matt Corral be the quarterback of the future faster than has developed, it seems all for naught for me. So I'm not really tripping on how they've been managing the quarterback competition, because I fully thought that they were trying to make P.J. Walker quarterback too, but I don't think that's the case anymore. But offensive line-wise, Deontay Brown struggled. I don't understand you could be that big and continue to get bull rushed and bullied and pushed back into the quarterback. On that sack that ended up being the touchdown in the end zone, he got pushed back. His guy didn't get the sack, but he was in there for the fumble recovery. And on multiple running plays, he's getting two gap. Two gap means when you get pushed back by the defensive line, he can control which side he wants to, because he's pushed you back. He has you fully extended with his arms, and he can choose what side he wants to go to. He's got two gap. And you're 350, 40 pounds. How are you getting pushed back that easily? Like, what is all that weight made out of? It's not muscle. Is it not muscle? And even me and some of the other creators, Panthers, YouTubers and creators, were talking about, like, what did we see from Deontay Brown in college that let us think that whatever, besides him being huge? Is it just his size that had us fooled to thinking that he could be something? And the quality offensive line coach in James Campion made us think that he could actually be something? Those weight issues are starting to become legit issues. But nevertheless, Cade Mays, the other rookie offensive line, plays some center and guard. Something to note. Looked pretty decent. He's still going to have some time, but I think Johnny on the spot filling in at certain times, I think he can be a guy that's going to make some other guys in this room expendable, i.e. maybe Dennis Daly, maybe obviously Deontay Brown, who I think is probably going to be good as cut and good as gone, unless they try to practice squad him again, but because I don't think anybody's going to be running in line to get Brown. But nevertheless, Cade Mays showing versatility, holding his own. I mean, obviously, he tried to bring the boom a couple times and stalemated with some linebackers and stuff, because you're going to need some more strength. You know what I'm saying? Being in the SEC is a little bit different than being in the NFL. Everybody's strong. Ickey Ekwonu learned that tonight with his welcome to the NFL moment, getting blasted by a safety. But Cade Mays, I a little bit more strength and conditioning and size coming into the future. I like the projection of him, the versatility playing center and guard. I like the pickup of Cade Mays. Our rookies, Cade Mays, Brandon Smith, are just two in general. Barno, he didn't flash as much this game, but it's starting to seem like some of these late round gems that they gambled on traits or versatility starting to pay off a lot more pretty quickly. So I'm liking what I'm seeing there. But Matt Rule, he put Terrace Marshall Jr. on notice, saying that he needed to practice. That was my biggest takeaway from the post-game press conference. You guys let me know down below in the comments what your biggest takeaway was, and how you felt about the game overall. What was the thing that you noticed? I appreciate you guys rocking with your boy on this longer video than normal. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.